Lesson 3 is about examining how we trust information from media sources. Students discover that news stories' headlines are not always what they seem, and they need to do deeper reading and reflecting on evidence in what they see and hear to understand what information is trustworthy. Before Lesson 3, a family tool helps engage families in discussions about their trusted sources of information and how they know they can trust those sources. Families might talk about how they trust information from elders in our communities who have our best interests in mind, or they trust information from sources that our families or friends also trust, or they trust information that uses evidence in ways that we trust. During the lesson, students share the results of their family discussions as they consider the various sources of information in our lives. Students then read a pair of news articles with seemingly conflicting information about COVID-19 testing and examine them closely to understand each of their messages. The theme of family and community knowledge is important in this lesson as students develop their media literacy and look for arguments based on evidence.
One of the most important skills that my students learned in this unit was how to locate and use trusted sources. When the pandemic started, there were a lot of unanswered questions, especially in our Native American community where sources are very limited. We have a couple of radio stations that most families listen to, and we have 2 major newspapers in our area, one that only comes out once a week. When we started the unit, students started sharing the things that they were hearing from their families. These claims were unsupported. But as science began to talk about the importance of masks and sanitizing and vaccines, we knew that we had to learn how to find trusted sources for those topics. One of the first things that we did was invite a pediatrician into our classroom. She talked about how vaccines are developed, and she also spent a large amount of time explaining where her sources came from. As a result of this unit, my students now know that they have to have trusted sources whenever they are making a claim.
This was amazing because we got to look at different news stations and different ways they got their information. We were able to look at different stories from different news stations about the same topic. We're also able to then decide which one was more factual, which one allowed us to come up with our own ideas. And then students went home with this information. I'm thinking of one in particular at our student conference. They came to me and we were talking about the COVID lessons we did, and this one in particular. They said that they actually changed the news station that they listen to and get their information from because they listened to more of a factual news station that would give them more information and not be so biased about it. So that was just amazing that my students got to be the teachers for their parents as well, and for my parents to be willing to allow that type of information and knowledge to be taught to them as well, so that they could be getting the best information about COVID and what is going on around them.